All right, so I kind of want to teach you guys how to make a note card. So something important that I think you guys need to know is how to make a cheat sheet, and I have been making them for years, all throughout college and whatnot. So one of the things saying, if I have my note card right here, this is my fancy note card, I have my name, great, my at the top or anywhere on it. What I usually do is I kind of divide it in sections first. So say for this quadratics lesson, I want to be able to look at the quadratic formula. So I'd write as neat as I can and put quadratic formula, and I would put, my formula. There's a U in there. I'd put there once was a negative boy who couldn't decide to go to a radical party. He decided to be square and he missed out on 4 awesome chicks. It was all over by 2 a.m. All right, so something that if I was looking at that one, I would box off that information. That is a loan. That information alone is what you want. Then I would decide, well, everything concerning the quadratic formula or anything quadratics, I'm going to highlight. So I'm going to highlight in one color. Maybe I pick blue, maybe I pick pink, or maybe, right, if I didn't want to highlight, all right, you pick certain colors. So if I were going back and I'm thinking another part of the quadratic formula is, well, the conjugate, so it'd be b squared minus 4ac, right? When I was trying to just find whether or not a graph, okay, works, I'd be using the b squared minus 4ac, and maybe I'll have an explanation. All right, that's so something, if you go and color code everything, it will really help. For example, for this upcoming test, I know for Unit 4, didn't want that. So I know for Unit 4, there are some formulas we need, right? Say completing the square. So maybe it's going to be a new box, and I'm going to write in blue. And so I'm going to say complete, right, complete square. And things I need to know to complete the square is b over 2 squared, right? But then sometimes what I end up doing is I end up writing next to it bullet points, right? Use when only left with variables, and with the variables it'd be x squared plus x, and you'd have your b and your a, right? And then, or maybe you could write, say, step 1, right? Step 1, move numbers over to one side. Move numbers over. All right, so I'd start writing steps. Right? That's another way you can write your note card, is you add in steps of things you will need. And lastly, another way to do it is say looking at completing the square, I do an example. And sometimes I do examples in all different colors. So, or I match it. So I know this will be an example for completing the square. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 5 equals 0. And then maybe I'd go through the example and show myself an example saying, well, I know this is my first step. I got to bring my 5 over, right? So then I get x squared plus 2x equals positive 5. Then this is where you use b over 2 squared, right? So then I'm going to be like, okay, so then I get x squared plus 2x plus, 1 equals 5 plus 1. All right, and then you get, you keep going down. So something like that is putting an example under something you might forget, right? You put steps and then you put an example, so that's something you can see. Maybe though, okay, maybe that you also not only put examples, but you can color code them too. So you'd color code maybe blue for complete the square, and then say I want an example for the quadratic formula. Say I have to solve x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0, and I have to use the formula, right? And then maybe you could put steps as well. Well, find A, B, and C, right? That's a step. So something that you might have to do is, let me erase that, don't want that. Something you might have to do is you might have to put examples and color code. My favorite thing is actually color coding. So when you look at this, if I look at a problem and I know, okay, it says complete the square, I'm only looking at the blue and I forget everything else, all right? And something you might want for this test, all right? Something you might want for this test is for 4.9, right, is not only completing the square, but what other formulas did we use? Well, we used all of our, vertex form. Maybe you just want to write vertex form down, right? Vertex form in my little thing is going to be y equals a times x minus h squared plus k, where you can say hk, yeah, that's the vertex, right? And then you would put that in one color. Maybe something else you might need is not vertex form, but remember our P and Q, and they're your x-intercepts. So they're your x, that's not nice, x, they'd be your x-intercepts. And then you have to write, well, y equals a times x minus p and x minus q. And maybe you're going to have to remind yourself, well, these are going to be opposite, right? P and Q are going to be opposite, and then your vertex one, your H is going to be opposite, but your K is going to be the same. All right, these are ways to make sure that your note card is organized. All right, you might write so much on your note card that if I were to look at all this, I can't find anything. And if you write really small, that's fine, but you need to be able to organize it. So something I would do is I would organize it. I'd block things off, so I'd make blocks, and I'd organize it by color. If you can't write in certain colors, that's fine. What you can do is you can just highlight. So quadratic formula, all right, that's purple. Complete the square. I'm going to highlight that in blue. And anything that is P or Q, right? My x-intercepts, I'm going to highlight that in green. If anything is in vertex form, I'm going to highlight that in yellow. This actually really helps your eye and trains your eye to just look at, well, if I'm using vertex form, I'm only going to be looking at the yellow. If I'm using just, completing the square, I'm looking at the blue, or quadratic formula, I'm looking at the purple. All right, so this actually really trains your eye to be able to look at it. How to make a note card? One, I would write, if I were making a new note card, and if I were looking at this, and my new note card was this shape, all right, something I would add on my note cards. So, oh, this is kind of cool. Never been able to do this before. Something I would consider, if I can work with this. All right, so something I would consider in my note card. One, I would consider just writing, right? Writing the formulas. And then after the formulas, what I would write are steps to use formula, right? It's no good if you have the formula if you don't know how to use it. So steps to use formula. I would always add this. I would always add how to use it. And then 3, if I could fit it, okay, 3, if I could fit it, do color code. I would always color code if possible, or use patterns. Okay, if you don't have color, use patterns. All right, if you can't just block it off, one can be square, one can block it off like little zigzags, one can block it off like curly cubes. Okay, there's different ways, but be able to organize your note card so you know exactly what to look for. All right, and then you can see the steps on how to use it. You can see an example. And then color coding, you just zone in on that and you forget everything else. Those are my suggestions to be able to write a successful note card.